Ladies and gentlemen, today we speak about a part of ourselves that many fear to acknowledge, the hidden self. Not the personality we show the world, not the polite mask shaped by society, but the deeper, instinctive forces that live beneath consciousness. Among these hidden forces lies what psychology calls the sexual shadow, a powerful misunderstood aspect of human nature. We are taught from childhood to divide ourselves into acceptable and unacceptable parts. We learn what is good, what is proper, and what must be hidden. Yet whatever is rejected by the conscious mind does not disappear. It descends into the unconscious, waiting patiently, shaping our emotions, relationships, desires, and fears. From the shadows, true growth begins not when we suppress these parts, but when we understand them. The shadow is often misunderstood because people associate it with darkness, danger, or moral failure. Yet the shadow is not an enemy created to harm you, it is a natural and necessary part of your psychological structure. It contains everything within you that has been rejected, ignored, or pushed away in order to fit into society's expectations. From early childhood, we learn which behaviors bring approval and which bring discomfort or punishment. Slowly we begin to hide certain impulses, emotions, and desires, not because they disappear, but because we believe they are unacceptable. These hidden elements gather in the unconscious and form what Jung described as the shadow. The sexual shadow, in particular, carries immense emotional energy, because sexuality is deeply connected to identity, creativity, intimacy, and the instinct for connection. When this energy is denied or labeled as shameful, it does not vanish. Instead, it seeks expression indirectly. It may appear as anxiety, secret obsessions, jealousy, guilt, or confusion in relationships. Many people struggle not because of desire itself, but because they are at war with a natural part of their humanity. To understand the shadow is to realize that it holds both primitive impulses and untapped potential. Within it lies passion, imagination, vitality, and emotional depth. The same energy that can create inner conflict can also inspire art, love, courage, and transformation when consciously understood. What we fear as darkness often contains the raw material for personal growth. When you treat the shadow as an enemy, you divide yourself. One part of you tries to appear perfect while another part silently demands recognition. This inner conflict drains psychological energy and creates a constant feeling of incompleteness. But when you approach the shadow with curiosity rather than judgment, something powerful happens. The hidden parts begin to lose their destructive intensity. Awareness softens repression, and understanding replaces fear. Accepting the shadow does not mean acting on every impulse or abandoning moral responsibility. Instead, it means acknowledging what exists within you without denial. It is the difference between being controlled by unconscious forces and consciously choosing how to live. A person who knows their shadow gains self-honesty. They recognize their desires, understand their triggers, and develop compassion both for themselves and for others. In this way, the shadow becomes not a threat, but a guide. It points toward areas of growth, revealing where authenticity has been sacrificed for approval. Each uncomfortable emotion becomes a signal inviting deeper self-knowledge. Rather than fighting against yourself, you begin working with your inner nature. True strength emerges when you stop trying to eliminate parts of yourself and instead learn to understand them. The shadow ceases to be a dark opponent and becomes a source of balance, reminding you that wholeness is achieved not by rejecting your humanity, but by embracing it consciously. Shame is rarely something we are born with. It is something we gradually learn. As children, we naturally express curiosity, emotion, affection, and bodily awareness without judgment. Over time, however, we begin receiving messages, spoken and unspoken, about what is acceptable and what must be hidden. Family expectations, cultural rules, religious interpretations, and social conditioning slowly shape our understanding of ourselves. Certain feelings are praised, while others are discouraged or silenced. Eventually, we internalize these reactions and begin to judge ourselves even when no one else is watching. This learned shame becomes especially powerful when connected to sexuality. because sexuality touches identity, vulnerability, and connection. When natural impulses are repeatedly labeled as wrong or embarrassing, the mind creates a split. One part tries to maintain social approval, while another part carries suppressed curiosity and desire. The individual may grow into adulthood feeling guilty for emotions they never consciously chose. The conflict is not between good and evil, but between conditioning and authenticity. Shame thrives in silence and unconsciousness. It convinces a person that something inside them is fundamentally flawed, leading them to hide not only from others, but also from themselves. This hiding creates tension, anxiety, and self-criticism. People may attempt to over-control their behavior, deny attraction, or judge others harshly, all as unconscious attempts to distance themselves from what they secretly fear within. Awareness, however, is a conscious decision. It begins the moment you pause and observe your inner experience without immediately labeling it as right or wrong. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" with self-condemnation, awareness asks, "What is this feeling trying to show me?" This shift transforms shame into understanding. When feelings are brought into consciousness, they lose their mysterious power. What once felt overwhelming becomes understandable and human. Choosing awareness does not mean rejecting values or boundaries, it means seeing clearly before deciding how to act. Awareness allows you to separate impulse from identity. You realize that having a feeling does not define your character, it simply reveals a part of your psychological landscape. From this place of clarity, responsibility becomes possible. You respond thoughtfully rather than react unconsciously. As awareness grows, compassion naturally follows. You begin to recognize that others carry similar hidden struggles, even if they appear confident on the surface. Judgment softens because you understand the universal human experience of conflict between instinct and expectation. The energy once trapped in shame starts transforming into self-acceptance and emotional maturity. Ultimately, awareness is an act of courage. It requires turning toward what you were taught to avoid and meeting it with honesty. When you choose awareness, you reclaim authority over your inner world. Shame no longer dictates your identity, it becomes a story you inherited, not a truth you must continue living. Through conscious understanding, you move from hiding yourself to knowing yourself. And in that end, knowledge, genuine freedom begins. Integration is the process through which the divided parts of the personality begin to work together instead of opposing one another. Many people live in an inner conflict without realizing it. One side of the self tries to be rational, controlled, and socially acceptable, while another side carries instinct, emotion, desire, and raw energy. When these parts remain separated, life feels like a constant struggle between what one should be and what one genuinely feels. This division weakens the individual because energy is spent maintaining inner resistance rather than supporting growth. Inner power does not come from suppressing instinct, nor from surrendering completely to impulse. Suppression creates tension and emotional numbness, while unchecked impulse creates chaos and regret. Integration offers a third path, conscious harmony. It means allowing the hidden aspects of the psyche to be acknowledged, understood, and given a meaningful place within the whole personality. When a person begins integrating the sexual shadow, they stop fearing their own depth. Desire is no longer seen as something that must be hidden or fought against, but as a form of psychological energy that can be directed wisely. The same force that can lead to obsession or confusion can also fuel creativity, passion, intimacy, and motivation. Integration transforms raw instinct into conscious vitality. This process requires honesty. One must recognize both strengths and vulnerabilities without exaggerating either. Many individuals try to build identity only around their virtues, rejecting anything that feels imperfect. Yet true confidence grows when a person knows their complexity and accepts responsibility for it. Self-knowledge reduces inner contradictions. Decisions become clearer because they arise from awareness rather than denial. As integration deepens, emotional reactions begin to change. Instead of being overwhelmed by sudden urges or unexplained moods, a person understands where these feelings originate. Awareness creates space between impulse and action. In that space, choice is born. This is the foundation of inner power, the ability to respond consciously rather than react automatically. Integration also brings authenticity. When the hidden self is acknowledged, the need to wear psychological masks decreases. Relationships become more genuine because there is less fear of being exposed. A person who accepts their own complexity becomes more tolerant of others' imperfections as well. Compassion replaces judgment, and connection becomes deeper and more honest. Perhaps most importantly, integration restores psychological energy. What was once used to repress or hide parts of the self becomes available for growth, creativity, and purpose. People often describe this stage as feeling more alive, grounded, and internally stable. The personality becomes unified rather than fragmented. Inner power, therefore, is not dominance over oneself, but cooperation within oneself. It is the quiet strength that arises when instinct and consciousness are no longer enemies but partners. Through integration, a person stops living in fragments and begins living as a whole, guided not by fear or repression, but by awareness, balance, and self-mastery. Projection is one of the most subtle yet powerful psychological mechanisms shaping human behavior. It occurs when qualities that exist within us, especially those we do not consciously accept, are unconsciously attributed to others. The mind, unwilling to recognize certain feelings or impulses as its own, places them outside the self. In this way, the outer world becomes a mirror, reflecting parts of our inner world that remain unseen. Many of our strongest emotional reactions are not truly about other people. They are signals coming from within. Intense attraction, irrational dislike, jealousy, admiration, or moral outrage often reveal something deeper than the situation itself. When someone evokes a disproportionately strong response, it is often because they carry traits that resonate with our hidden self. What fascinates or disturbs us most frequently points toward aspects of our own psyche seeking recognition. Projection allows the ego to protect its self-image. If a person believes they must always appear controlled, they may perceive others as reckless or inappropriate, while denying their own suppressed impulses. Likewise, qualities we secretly admire but feel unable to express, confidence, sensuality, boldness, emotional openness, may appear exaggerated in those we idealize. In both cases, the unconscious is attempting to reveal something important, parts of ourselves that have not yet been integrated. Understanding projection transforms relationships into opportunities for self-discovery. Instead of immediately judging or idolizing others, one begins to ask deeper questions. Why does this person trigger such a strong emotional reaction? What inner quality is being activated? What part of myself am I encountering through this interaction? These questions shift attention from blame or obsession toward awareness. The sexual shadow frequently expresses itself through projection because sexuality carries vulnerability and emotional intensity. Attraction may feel mysterious or overwhelming precisely because it connects to unconscious desires or unmet psychological needs. When these feelings remain unexamined, individuals may become dependent on others to carry qualities they themselves have rejected or ignored. This can lead to unrealistic expectations, emotional confusion, or repeated relationship patterns. By recognizing project, ion, a person gradually reclaims these disowned qualities. Instead of seeing strength, desire, or emotional depth only in others, they begin to recognize these potentials within themselves. The external world loses its exaggerated emotional charge because the inner source has been acknowledged. Relationships become more balanced, grounded in reality rather than unconscious fantasy. This process requires humility and courage. It asks us to admit that what we criticize or idealize outside may also live within us. Yet this realization is deeply liberating. The world stops feeling like a place filled with threats or unattainable ideals and becomes a field of psychological reflection. Every encounter offers insight into the hidden self. Projection, therefore, is not a flaw but a message. It reveals where consciousness has not yet reached. When we learn to read these reflections carefully, we move closer to self-knowledge. The qualities we once chased or feared in others return to us as parts of our own identity, allowing the personality to become more complete, self-aware, and internally balanced. Wholeness is not achieved by becoming flawless or perfectly disciplined. It is achieved by becoming complete. Many people spend their lives trying to construct an ideal version of themselves, strong but never vulnerable, moral but never conflicted, controlled but never instinctive. In this pursuit of perfection, they unknowingly reject essential parts of their humanity. The psyche, however, does not function through exclusion. Whatever is denied continues to exist beneath awareness, influencing thoughts, emotions, and behavior from the unconscious. True psychological growth begins when a person stops striving to eliminate inner contradictions and instead learns to accept them consciously. Acceptance does not mean approval of every impulse, nor does it mean surrendering to uncontrolled desire. It means acknowledging reality as it exists within you. When you recognize your fears, desires, insecurities, and instincts without denial, you remove the internal resistance that creates suffering. Much of human anxiety comes not from what we feel, but from the struggle against feeling it. Acceptance softens this struggle and allows the mind to relax into honesty. The sexual shadow plays an important role in this journey because it holds powerful life energy tied to intimacy, creativity, connection, and self-expression. When rejected, this energy often turns into shame, secrecy, or inner conflict. But when accepted with awareness and responsibility, it becomes a source of vitality and emotional authenticity. A person no longer feels divided between a public self and a hidden self. Instead, they experience continuity between who they are inside and how they live outwardly. Wholeness emerges when opposing forces within the psyche begin to coexist. Strength learns to live alongside sensitivity, reason alongside instinct, discipline alongside passion. Rather than canceling each other out, these opposites create balance. Just as day gains meaning through night, conscious identity gains depth through the acceptance of unconscious elements. The individual becomes psychologically grounded because nothing essential is being denied. Acceptance also brings compassion. When you recognize your own complexity, you naturally become more understanding of others. Judgment softens because you see that every person carries unseen struggles and hidden contradictions. Relationships improve because they are no longer based on unrealistic expectations of perfection. Authentic connection becomes possible when people no longer feel compelled to hide parts of themselves. Perhaps the greatest transformation occurs internally, the exhausting effort of maintaining masks begins to fade. Energy once spent on repression becomes available for creativity, purpose, and meaningful engagement with life. Confidence grows quietly, not from superiority, but from self-trust. The knowledge that you can face your inner world without fear. Wholeness is ultimately a state of inner reconciliation. It is the moment when you stop fighting yourself and begin living as a unified being. Acceptance allows the shadow and the conscious self to stand together, creating psychological harmony. In this harmony, a person discovers a deeper sense of peace, not because life becomes simple, but because the self is no longer divided. The journey toward understanding the sexual shadow is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming fully yourself. Inside every human being lives a silent struggle between the mask and the truth. Courage begins the moment you stop running from your inner world. The parts you fear most may hold your greatest vitality, creativity, and emotional freedom. Do not aim to destroy the shadow. Learn from it, listen to it, because the person who accepts their hidden self no longer lives divided. They live awake, whole, and profoundly alive. Thank you.